If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
Is the entire fetus intact in the lab when the procurement technician enters the lab?
Yes.
How does a tissue procurement occur in one of these situations when the entire fetus is intact in the lab?
We do dissection.
Do you mean that they did not have a heartbeat?
It would depend.
How long did PPPSW have a relationship with ABR, or does it continue to today?
It continues.
Blatant lies coming from the White House itself about executing babies after they're born.
Advanced Bioscience Resources is the oldest known organization that harvests and sells aborted baby body parts. They've been doing this since 1989, the same year that I was born. That means that the first kids they parted out and sold would be my age today if they had not been killed by the lethal intersection of abortion, organ trafficking, and fetal experimentation. The first undercover video I ever filmed for CMP's investigation was with ABR's procurement manager, Perrin Larton. Here's what she said under oath about that video.
Ms. Larton, do you recognize the individual depicted on the video?
Yes.
And who was that?
That's me.
And does this appear to be the same conversation we were just discussing previously?
Yes.
Okay. We will play a little bit of the video and ask questions afterwards, as we've been doing before.
You know, of even close to like whole organ transplant for the mice, you know,
Yeah.
because you can actually reconstitute the immune system that much better and that much more authentically if you're not just doing like mashed up little, you know, cell bits, you know.
And that, the problem with that is they don't come out intact.
Oh, they don't?
Not open, there's not closed abdomen. They're it's always pulled apart.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. That's the whole point is not to have a live birth.
Okay.
And so the doctors have all, unless it's somebody who has had 6 pregnancies and 6 vaginal deliveries.
And then it just kind of pops out.
They put lambs in and she comes in the next morning. And I literally have had women come in and they'll go to the OR and they're back out in 3 minutes. And I'm going, what's going on? Oh yeah, the fetus was already in the vaginal canal whenever we put her in the syrup, it just fell out.
Wow.
So, you know, because if they've had a lot of births, then that's kind of what happens.
Right.
And then, Ms. Larton, do the fetuses occasionally have a closed abdomen?
Yes.
Okay. And then in those circumstances, how frequently do they have a closed abdomen?
Oh, I don't know, once a month, maybe.
Okay. And then in those circumstances, is it a situation where the fetus just fell out, as had been discussed at the end of the clip, or is it some other reason?
No, they just, sometimes they fall out. As I said in the video, it's depending on the woman. Women are all different. Some women labor for 24 hours to have their baby, and some people labor for 24 minutes. So
certainly, certainly. and in the situation, and then how frequently would you mentioned the fetus falling out situation? How frequently would that occur, in your estimation?
I don't know, once every couple months.
So in a normal situation, you've said the surgeon certifies the completeness of the procedure, and then the technician goes and procures the tissue.
And the
technician then goes to procure the tissue. In a situation where the fetus falls out, does the same thing happen?
Certainly.
Okay. When the fetus falls out, is anything done to the fetus
No.
by the surgeon in your estimation? Is the entire fetus intact in the lab when the procurement technician enters the lab?
Yes.
Okay. how does a tissue procurement occur in one of these situations when the entire fetus is intact in the lab?
We do dissection.
And just to be clear, you do dissection to obtain the tissues that are on the list for the day?
We do dissection to get the tissues that the researchers have requested, yeah.
They are, I mean, they have a heartbeat, don't they, at the point they would fall out?
You know, objection. This witness isn't in the room when that happens. This witness is not a doctor. This witness is not here to testify about the medical or biological conditions of the fetus when it's eliminated from the mother.
And by not alive, do you mean that they were not moving?
Correct.
And do you mean that they did not have a heartbeat?
It would depend.
Okay. And when you say it would depend, what do you mean?
I can see hearts that are not in an intact POC that are beating independently.
The Federal Born Alive Infants Protection Act mandates that the U.S. Code apply equally to an infant born alive at any gestational age, even after an abortion. The federal law defines born alive as a fetus with a beating heart. A fetus that just falls out with a beating heart is a human being equally entitled to all protections of federal law. Placing an order for body parts from a born-alive infant uses the means of interstate commerce to obtain the death of a human being through organ harvesting. If the federal law is applied equally to born-alive infants, this is murder for hire under Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 1958.
Is that true that you've had a patient deliver in the operating room a non-viable fetus?
I'm sure I have.
What do you mean by a non-viable fetus?
A fetus that's not capable of survival.
And how do you define that?
I don't define that. Viability is, well, I do define that sometimes.
Okay, so...
There's many criteria you can use to determine viability.
And what are those criteria?
Depends on where you work.
Okay, where you work. What are those criteria where you work?
Viability is determined on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and what are the criteria you use to evaluate viability?
You can use different things: estimated fetal weight, gestational age, the health of the fetus, the availability of interventions.
And based on those criteria, you make the determination as to whether the fetus is viable or non-viable?
On a case-by-case basis, the physician determines if a fetus is viable, yes.
You've never been alerted of that situation in your 25 years at Orange County?
One time, maybe 20 years ago, I don't honestly remember, there was such a situation and I was made aware of it.
So in the situation you described 20 years ago, do you know what your staff did to, if anything, to tend to that fetus? Did they call 911?
Objection, calls for speculation, beyond the scope, irrelevant.
I have only vague recollection of it. I know they kept it warm and comfortable for the very brief period that it was alive. I don't think there was even time to call 911. It was a matter of seconds.
Is that the protocol? Just keep it warm and comfortable?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence, lacks foundation, calls for speculation.
This is something that every obstetrician gynecologist deals with on rare occasion. I'm not a medical doctor. I've never been in such a situation. It is their medical judgment what to do in that circumstance.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.